Morning world, it's Saturday the 19th of December 2020. It's about 9:30 in the morning UK time. In about 3.5 hours from now, Jupiter in the sky will leave Capricorn and move into Aquarius. So let's have a look at this. Jupiter, biggest planet in the sky, bigger than all the other planets put together. It's got a lot of gravity. You weigh 3 to 4 times as much on Jupiter as you do on Earth. And Jupiter gives out 3 times as much heat and light as it takes in from the sun. And yet, Jupiter has no substance. You can't land on it. It's got no surface. It's a gas giant. It gets hotter and hotter the closer you get to the inside of it. But you can't walk on it. And it's just a gigantic gas giant. And it spins on its axis faster than any other planet, relatively speaking. It goes around the sun in 11.9192 years, so effectively goes around the sun every 12 years. Spends on average 1 year in each sign of the zodiac. In this last year, Jupiter's been in Capricorn. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, the sign before Capricorn. So Jupiter's not been that comfortable in Capricorn because Capricorn deals with words like structure and order and hard work and discipline and boundary and the regularity. Whereas Jupiter is more easygoing, you know. He just wants to have fun. He's a big boy. He wants to have fun. He wants to party and enjoy himself and indulge. And he wants to learn and philosophize and grow and experience. But none of this involves words like discipline and hard work and regularity, which after all is the forte of Capricorn. So the only way that Jupiter's able to really been working in Capricorn is in a kind of pseudo-academic way, where it's had to be disciplined with itself about the nature of A, what it learns, B, how it learns, and C, the regularity of its learning process. So yes, for a large number of people, Jupiter in Capricorn's been difficult in one way in that it's restricted their ability to expand their philosophies and their consciousness, but it's also been good for people in that it's kind of keyholed them into becoming more self-disciplined with themselves around developing their own beliefs, truths, philosophies and ideas. Now Jupiter's about to move into Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, the diametric opposite of Saturn. Using the Greek pantheon as a guide to the mythology of astrology, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, Uranus rules Aquarius, each side of Capricorn, and in the pantheon they are grandfather and grandson. Zeus stroke Jupiter was the grandson of Uranus stroke Uranus, the sky god. And of course Jupiter's father was Kronos stroke Saturn, and Saturn was the sun, one of the Titans, born of the blending of Uranus, the sky god, and Gaia, the earth goddess. And now Jupiter's about to move into Aquarius. Now Aquarius is different to Capricorn in that it's much less structured in terms of discipline, focused hard work and sticking in the here and now and paying attention to the rules as they have been. And instead Aquarius is more orientated around rewriting the rule book, reinventing the world in a more futuristic way. It's certainly a more futuristic option. Jupiter's all right in Aquarius. I wouldn't say it's a beneficial place for it, but it's probably better than Capricorn. And that's not to put Capricorn down, because there's a number of planets that excel in Capricorn, not just Saturn. Pluto does okay there. Mars does very well there. I know what the textbooks say about the moon in Capricorn, but I'm not unfavourable towards it. Mercury likes being in Capricorn. Jupiter doesn't. Jupiter would prefer Aquarius, it'd prefer Sagittarius, but Aquarius is better than Capricorn because Jupiter in Aquarius is going to encourage people to expand their personal philosophies and ideas in ways that blend with the movement forward into the future. So there's going to be a lot more futuristic thinking, a lot more openness to novelty, to imagination, creativity. There's going to be a lot more fertility in terms of creative output, more innovation in terms of technological development and futuristic ways of managing the world's resources. Aquarius is the sign not only of the future, but also of our hopes and wishes. And of course, Jupiter, with its Roman name being Jove, Jovia, from where we get joviality, it's very hopeful and optimistic, sometimes unseemly so. Jupiter is, of course, the planet, because it's so big, of going completely over the top, overreaching and overstretching itself. And there is a risk with Jupiter in Aquarius that we will collectively suddenly start bursting into 2021 going, okay, it's all over now, let's have some fun, and behave in a very irresponsible and irrational way, which would completely undo much of the hard work we've all done collectively and individually on ourselves over 2020. Nevertheless, with Jupiter moving into Aquarius, and the fact that Saturn's going to be in Aquarius as well, it does lead me to suggest that over the coming year we are going to see new ideas coming in, new ways of living, new approaches to community, and we're also going to see a much more balanced approach to social media, I think. With Jupiter in Aquarius and Saturn in Aquarius, there's going to be a balancing between the desires and needs of individuals to be out there in the world, but also in a more considered way. Whenever there's one of the things I've realised as I've got older is that whenever there's anything new in the world, then it's like a baby being born, and it doesn't have boundaries. And bearing in mind that for the first 20 years of my astrological studies, I did it all by hand because there were no computers. Which is why I often say that anyone who calls themselves an astrologer, if you can't construct a horoscope by hand, then you're not an astrologer. If you rely on computers to do it for you, you're never going to get the depth understanding of how it works. Likewise, I've seen the internet develop over the last 30 years. I've been an active part of it for over 25 years. And, you know, it kind of amuses me now when I realise that there's at least one, if not two generations out there who just didn't have any idea of never lived in a time where there were no computers. Anybody who's under 30 isn't going to be aware of a time where there were not these wonderful little handheld gadgets which we can use to influence our lives, whether for better or worse. I hope that Jupiter in Aquarius is going to give us a bigger world view, a bigger picture, and it's going to help us expand our understanding of how our actions impact upon everyone else. And of course, there's always going to be the 5 to 10%, what I call the nut jobs, who will go to extremes. But these are the people who are so out of touch with their own soul that they're driven by the desire for power and greed above all else, that they've lost the capacity for love and kindness, and they are truly empty vessels. And of course it's not hopeless, but one of the things about Jupiter is that it does things to extremes, and you can be hopeless, but you can also be hopeful. One of the things I use a lot with Jupiter, especially Jupiter and Neptune, are kind of equal and opposite in certain ways. Jupiter likes being in Pisces and Neptune's not uncomfortable in Sagittarius, so it's a kind of blending here. They're brothers after all. There's, at the bottom of the table, there's despair, which is truly hopeless. less, where you have no hope, where you have given up. Above that, there's depression, where the gravity, the weight of the world impacts upon you so much. Everything is a grind, everything is a challenge, and it's just, you're always just carrying this weight on your shoulders, and the world's a dark place. There's despondency, where it's like, oh, nothing's working, I just can't get it right. Oh yeah, I'll keep going, but it's just not working. And you get despondent because nothing seems to be right. And then there's melancholy, where no matter how good it is, it's never going to be good enough. This is where Jupiter comes in a bit, to which I say, of course it's never going to be good enough, ever. But it's always getting better. Your glass is either half full or half empty. At the end of the day, perception, your perception of the world is yours. It is your responsibility. You are responsible for the way you choose to see the world. And of course, I empathise, sympathise and resonate with those people who are having a genuinely hard time out there. And my heart goes out to them. However I can help, I will. But at the same time, there's an element of self-responsibility. And if the world's going to be a better place, we all have to take responsibility for ourselves, at least for the way we choose to see the world. And I think that Jupiter in Aquarius is going to bring over a period of a year, it's going to bring a much greater balance into the way we deal with, the way we communicate with large groups of people. So I am looking basically at Jupiter in Aquarius as being hopefully a revamp and a much more balancing act by the end of next year, when Jupiter leaves Aquarius, in the ways we manage social media, and hopefully we find a much greater balance between, on the one hand, all the antipathy and vitriol that's out there, and on the other hand, the dewy-eyed, fluffy, hippy-dippy people out there who have just got no touch with the real world. There needs to be a balance. I didn't realise I was going to say this, but I hope that Jupiter in Aquarius is going to bring a balancing point into the way that we manage social media. And with Saturn in the background, overseeing all this, yeah, I think it's going to happen. Not a moment too soon either. All right, world, that's my rambling over for today. It's Sunday tomorrow. Let's see what tomorrow brings. Catch you later, world. Bye.